Okay, welcome, Mr. Beller. Thank you very much. My name is David Schoonmaker. I'm the Rosh Yeshiva, and I told the Talmidim already what a schus it was to have a Holocaust survivor speak to us, and I mentioned that any Holocaust survivor is such a schus for us, but particularly someone like yourself. Mr. Beller was born in Auschwitz itself almost 100 years ago, and we can't imagine what he survived and what he went through. And he also had shaykhus to the great Klosenberger Rebbe, who I'm sure he'll tell us about. And we don't take this schus lightly, and we're so honored that you took time from your day to spend time with us, and we're all very excited to learn from you, Mr. Beller. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
I'm ready. You want me to start, or you want to start? Which question?
No. Maybe you talk, and then at the end, if anybody has questions, they'll ask.
Okay. My name is Shmuel Beller. I was born in the town of Auschwitz, which was called before the war Oświęcim. The Polish called it Oświęcim, and the German gave it called Auschwitz. And the Eden called it Auschwitzin. It was a town, about 6,000 Jewish people lived there. The Rebbe was all Shalom Shabbos, all Shalom Shabbos people lived there. And the people that over there, they mostly were what they had the parnosa, what was called hoziros, which is custom peddlers. What they did, the man went to a town every day. It was near Katowice, and there was near the German border, and the Jewish people had the Polish people which lived on the German people which lived on the Polish side, and they went over to work on the other side by the Germans, and they made money, a lot of money. So the Jewish people from our town and from other towns went over there, tried to sell them different things what they need on consignment, and they went there every week to collect the money. In the town we had a big Bismerish Agudel, then we had a big shul, and then there was a one in the same street was a couple of small Bute Medrushim. There was there the Radomska Yeshiva, which I went there, and there were a few small other yeshivas there. The Rav, as I told you, Rav Bamba Zachoin Levucha was the Rav from the shul. And in 1939, September 1, the war broke out. About a week or so, not everybody knows this, but I witnessed it, I saw it. The skies were fiery red. Mamash was unbelievable. I never seen anything like that. The people in Auschwitz got very, very scared. People were going in the streets crying because they knew that something horrible was coming there. And this happened. September 1, 1939, the war broke out. We were about 30 or 40 kilometers away from the German border. So when they invaded Poland, within a couple hours, they were in my town. When they came into my town, the street that I lived, they passed by there, and there is a bridge. As you come out straight, you make a right turn, there's a bridge, and then you go out into the town there. In the area where I lived, this was called Zassola, and this was 2 streets about. One street took to to which came off the bridge, took to the concentration camp, which was a labor camp. And if you came off the bridge and went straight, it took you to Birkenau, which was called Brzezinka. And this was the area where the German made the area of destruction. And the reason what I think was because this was the area, there was a lot of rail tracks there. And I think this was the area they decided, because they were able to get the rail tracks coming into this area. So in this area, they decided they took a lot of space there. They threw out the Polish people from the houses, and they built this camp of destruction. In 1941, yet they opened up this camp. They started this camp with very few people in there, but they brought in from Germany their prisoners, which not necessarily Jews. There might have been others also, which they wore already the striped uniforms. At this time, we already found out what's going on, because they took some people from our town and they took them to work there. Unfortunately, they killed some of them, and they sent the ashes to the families in little boxes, little small boxes, and the families had to take it, pay for this 20 zlotys. Then the Germans decided to clean up the Jews from our town, and they sent those to the town. It's called Sosnowiec, and Benjin Sosnowiec. In this town, we were put up with Jewish people, with Jewish people in their apartments. They had to let us in. There was a Kultusgemeinde in this area there, and they gave orders to the Jewish people. The Germans gave orders to the Kultusgemeinde. The Kultusgemeinde had to follow all the orders. So they gave orders to them for whatever they wanted. They wanted money. They wanted people to work. And whatever they wanted, they had to give up. They had to follow this. If they didn't give, there was cases where they wanted to give, they didn't want to give the money, and the Germans found out that they had money. They took the man and they took him and they hung him. And there was cases. There was one case where a sister had to watch how her brother's being hung. Was other cases also. Unfortunately, was a case where a son with his father, the son had to kick the stool. Now the son when he came to over there, he didn't want to kick the stool, and the father ordered them to kick. Never that the son had to kick the stool. We had to be there outside to watch what's going on there. Then, after being there in the ghetto, I worked I had not too bad. My father was taken away to ZAL, which is Zwangsarbeitslager, which is a forced labor camp. I worked in the ghetto, remained there, my mother and my brother and sister. And I worked for a German which had a factory manufacturing uniforms for the Wehrmacht, for the soldiers. And in the morning, I worked in the homes, cleaned the houses. I had it pretty good at this time, because when I worked for them, for the homes, so the women gave me whatever was left over food they gave me, and I was able to bring it to my mother, Shulam, and brother, sister, bring it home. However, something happened while I worked there. I committed so-called crime, what they call it a crime. I was lying. I worked in the in the office, cleaning the office by the one German who had the factory there. And one day he ordered me to go across the street. There was a lumber yard owned by a Jew, he still had it. He ordered me to go over across and to bring him a certain tool. Well, little did I know, I went over and I asked the man that my boss wants you should give him a certain tool. Now, he didn't want to give it to me. And he told me, go back, tell him I'm not here. Little did I know that he was standing by the window looking, I was talking to him. When I came back and I told him that, he closed the door and he started beating me murderously. Unbelievable. He broke my nose here. I was bleeding. And finally, threw me out of there, and he gave orders to send me here to Auschwitz. At this time already, transports were already going to Auschwitz, where they killed the people. There was a transport going to labor camps. I was supposed to be sent to Auschwitz. However, I found out what they want to do. I went into hiding. So they took my mother as a hostage. And I was in hiding. So they want to send my mother away to Auschwitz. I found this out, so I gave myself up. So they made my mother let her go, and I went in to give myself up, and I was sent to a labor camp. Now, when you come to a labor camp, this was in the beginning, we had to change our clothes. There was a pile of clothes in each camp which they brought from Auschwitz. This was for the people what they killed in Auschwitz. They brought it to the camps to give us to be able to use for the people who went to work. And I tell you this because one day when I was working on a Baustelle, I wanted to take off my jacket, and I found my jacket something stiff by the arm. So when I came back to camp, I opened it up, and I found there a $20 bill. Now, you ask where the $20 bill get in there. Now, the answer is probably that one of the mother had a sister or somebody in the United States, and she sent him some money. She sent her some money, and while the son was taken away to camp, she sewed it in the jacket. And she tells my son, if you ever give camp to camp, you should know you have that some money, maybe it can help you. I found this money. However, I couldn't do much with it because if they catch me with it, they would kill me. So I worked with different nationalities. I went over to one of them and I said, look, I found this on the floor. I didn't tell them that in a jacket because they reported to me they would kill me. So give me some bread. He wanted to give me a bread, so he got me one bread. I said, that's a lot of money. So he gave me 2 breads. I was happy he got rid of it, and I had something food to eat. While I was in this camp, I had an Obermaster. His name was Obermaster Schaefer. He was a great, great man. He was a mamish, wonderful Chassidim Israelim. We worked a few Jewish men under his supervision. And we were put to work. He had a lot of people, 1,000 people work on them. So but we 3, me and another boy and another Jewish elderly man, and there was some PWs, and we worked under his supervision. So he gave us he was the head, he didn't work. So he gave us to work on the German from Sudetengebiet, which is Czechoslovakia, was the occupied land. And he was a big anti-Semite. And he put us to very hard work, very hard work. At one time he gave us, we had to pick up a steel pipe, which was about 10 foot long, but steel, heavy steel. We were four people who picked this up, two of us and two PWs. And we picked this up, he took away the two PWs, and we had to carry it about 10 feet, the pipe, and drop it down. How we got it over there, I don't know. It's a miracle how we got it there. So next day we went over to this Obermeister Schaefer, and we told him what's happening. And he told us, you're such a fine man. Haben Sie keine Angst, don't be afraid. Don't go back to him to work, I'll give you other work. He gave me, and the other men, the Jewish men, he gave us to go around the area there to collect parts that fall down from the building that they're being built, and then whatever he says. And then he said, if you don't know what to do, go hide behind the pipes. There was huge pipes there. You hide the pipes before you go back to camp until you have to go back to camp. It was a marvelous, he was a mamish, one of the with this camp, I was there maybe another 6 months or so, and then they moved us to another camp. They moved us to another camp. This was already a concentration camp. In the forced labor camps, we wore civilian uniforms with the Star of David cut out. In the concentration camps, we had the striped uniforms. It was completely different. The food was also very rationed, but there was a little easier for us because in the small camps, we were small groups, and there was a lot of supervision. In this camp, we had already, 6,000 people of us, and we were going out to work. We were already 1,000 people with each couple, and this was, we were not as much supervised, watched over us as we went to small camps, because we had so many that not too many Germans. One day, I don't know if I told you, I worked on the camp, and I found a piece of wire. Did I tell you about this? No? Okay, I found a piece of wire. Now in the camp we had camelas. It was like a pishke like this, big one. And this is what we had put up a wire with 2 holes. And this is what we had our soup and our coffee, everything. So one day I passed by an area and I found a piece of wire. So my string was broke and I picked it up. So one of the Germans saw it doing this. He told me I committed sabotage. What? I used the wire belongs to the war machine. I used it for my own purpose. He told the Vorarbeiter to report it. While I came back to camp, the Vorarbeiter went to the head of the camp, asked him what he should do to the report. He told him, don't report it. Now, next day, we came back, and they found out that it was not reported. They started beating up the Vorarbeiter. Mamish, they beat him murderously. They was beaten up. I was sent to a different area to work. So this was my punishment, to harder work to do. From there, for this camp, we started moving to the concentration camp. And the concentration, as I told you, was already big, lot of people, and we were about 5,000 to 6,000. But when we went out, we was already groups of a few hundred. And we came on the camp, was not so much supervision, so we had it a little easier. I worked there, and I found an easy job. So this went on for a while. To a miracle, I found an easy job. And then the war was closing in on the Germans. And this was in 1944, in the end, the Russians were closing in on our area. So they started moving us. Now, as they started moving us, it was winter time, the end of December and beginning of January, February, March, April 1945. This when we started the Dead March. We started the Dead March. There was a magazine with clothes. They had it there, which they bought from Auschwitz. I went in there to the magazine and tried to get some clothes to be a little bit. I had wooden shoes before. When you go in wooden shoes on snow, it piles up, you fall down, they shoot you, they don't get up right away. So I found a pair of leather shoes, and I found 3 pairs of socks. And we went all day from morning to evening. We went in the snow. At night, we slept in barns. In the morning, when the Germans came in to start walking with us, they went with the bayonets and they digged into the hay to find if anybody's hiding there. If you could leave anybody hit, then he was killed. This time I found a miracle. It was one guy, he was a Vorarbeiter. He had, when we went out from the camp, he was able to get into the kitchen. He took some breads out. So he had a lot of breads with him. While he slept at night, the breads were laying there in front of him, and I was laying near him. So I held my hand up to a bread. I took up some bread. He didn't see it. We continued with this march. We wound up in Groß-Rosen. In Groß-Rosen was an area, a camp, which was a labor camp, was also a camp which had gone through camp. In other words, when we marched from beginning in a couple hundred miles away, no, maybe 200 miles away, we had to go through there, and from there they decided to send us wherever they wanted. In this camp, when we arrived there in this camp, from there we went out, keep on going further. However, after we stopped in this camp, they had cattle trains, and they put us in the cattle trains. And they filled up the cattle trains, they gave us a bread, and they closed up the trains, and that was all it. Then we were in the train, we didn't know where we was locked up, no food, no nothing, no sanitation. After a while, we wound up in another camp. In this camp, we worked there again for about 2 months. We worked there because the war was coming to an end. So while I was working in the camp, I worked with a German master, and I worked with the welding machine. And with the welding machine, when you work, this is being used for the war machine. So while I worked with this German, I found a few potatoes there. And I wanted to boil up the few potatoes, and suddenly I got beaten up in the back with a board and hit. And the German accused me of sabotage. However, I was able to get away with it. I came back to camp. It was reported, but was not reported to the Germans. If they reported to the Germans, they would have killed me. Within a short time, then we started, after we were there, they put us back on a cattle train. We continued on the cattle train. We're full, about 100 people in one cattle train. And again, they gave us a piece of bread. And that's what all that we got. The doors were closed, couldn't get out. We couldn't see nothing, what's going on. We were going. We didn't know where we're going. After going for a while, the train stopped. As the train stopped, we're staying there for a while closed. One day the doors open up and two American soldiers come and say, they tell us, "You're free, you're free." Now, laying there in the cattle trains with sick people, with dead people, with all the schmutz, we weren't able to go out, do nothing. They right away came with the Red Cross. They took out the dead people, the sick people. And I was also, went out. I didn't eat for so long. And they put me in the hospital. They wound up in the hospital in Feldafing. At this time, I was very critical. I had typhus, very critical. So while I was in the hospital, 2 rooms away from me was a rabbi. I didn't know who he was. I was not from at all. I was away 5 years and 8 months. So I did not know. No. One day I hear in the hall, I was in the hall in the hospital, it was a Lieutenant Smith, the American lieutenant. He says there was a German doctor, a tall guy, the doctor in the nurses. He says, tells it, "Ich halte Sie persönlich verantwortlich for the bringer. I keep you personally responsible for the rabbi." I don't know who he's talking about, but then I found out this was the Klausenberger Rebbe's Koine Woche. He was there, and he was watched over it. There was nurses and doctors coming constantly watching over it. Also was also watching. While I recuperated after a few months, I was put in, they let us out, and we remained in Feldafing in the building there for a short while. And then they put us to a DP camp in Fernwald. Fernwald was already a DP camp where they put us 20 boys in a room, and what they gave us food, we had food. Then the Klausenberger was already, he brought Sfurim from America, he went over, he brought Sfurim, he made a yeshiva there. I, at this time, was completely out of religion. I ate treifas, I didn't want Yiddishkeit. I didn't want nothing. I was away so many years. One day, the group of the Hungarian boys, which I was together with them, they made a circle around me, and I was eating the treifas sentence, and they ripped it out of me and says, "Shmuel, my name is Shmuel." They say, "Shmuel, how long will you still eat this treifas?" I said, "Get away from me." They wouldn't let me go. They put so much force on me, and they tripped away the sandwich. They schlepped me up. The Klausenberger happens to be there in that time. It wasn't out to the Rebbe. The Rebbe came over to me. He was talking to me. He asked me where I come, what I do, and everything. I told him, but I was away. I had no connection with it. I didn't want to know that. However, he told there was a Liepen Margulis for Torah Temima, and there was another boy, also for Rabbi's kids, and he told them to watch over me, and that they put watch over me. They took me. It was hard in the beginning because I was away so long. I didn't want to get to it near anything, but they put a lot of pressure. They brought me back to the Rebbe, back and forth, and the Rebbe convinced me And the Rebbe told me, guided me, and so on and so forth. I came back, I learned in yeshiva, and I came back to the religion. I was with the Hungarian boys. You see, they were only away a short time. They were full with religion. I was away so many years and everything. So it was very hard for me, but I came back. And then I came to the United States after being in DP camp there for a year. I came to the United States and I learned here in the yeshiva, for 2 years. And then I went on my own. And then I got married and had 4 children, Talmid Chachomim. That's what I am. Many questions. I'm constantly in contact with the closer together. Now with the younger Rebbe, before the closer Schoenler Woche with the alten Rebbe. I can hear. Kavi.
First off, if any of the Talmidim have questions, they could ask. I'll ask Mr. Beller some questions, and feel free, guys. Please take the opportunity.
Yeah.
What you said it in the hospital? They were watching the Rebbe very carefully. The nurses. Why were they watching them? They knew who. How did they know who he was? Oh, the Hasidim.
No, there was the Lieutenant Smith, a Jewish man, and he knew already. They told him who he was. He was a great rabbi. He didn't know he was a Jewish man.
Mm-hmm. What did the Rebbe say? You said you met the Rebbe. Like, how would the Rebbe? How was he makar of you? What did he say to you? What did he tell you? Like, what did he say that affected you?
He affected me. They you see, when I came into the yeshiva there, I didn't know the Rebbe. I didn't know, so they brought me to the Rebbe. I didn't know who he was. I had no idea what a great man he is. And he was talking to me. He was telling me how I come from Amidish Hoys. I should become back go sit in the learn yeshiva and so on and so forth. He says you got nothing to worry about here. I'll give you the code. You go with the boys. They're going to learn with you. And Lipa Magul, he put Lipa Magul's head. There was another boy. They put to learn with me and to teach me.
Did you feel like you felt he cared about you? Like you felt he cared about you?
He cared a lot, not a lot. He talked to me. Schmid talked to me as you talk to your father. He told me like this,
Talk to me like you talk to your father. He said.
He told me I should talk to him like I would talk to my father. He said, yeah.
Rabosai, any questions, Mr.
Ask questions from the camp, for all this. I gave you so much food of thought.
Daddy, did you tell him about your number?
Yeah, I have a number. This number is 184, mark it down, 184-805, 184-805. When we came into a camp, in the concentration camp, I got it. In the labor camp, in the civilian cloth, when we went with the Star of David, we didn't have a number. We just had Star of David, and that's all. But here we got this number. When we came into this concentration camp, before we started the death march, I was there about 6 months, gave us this number. And this number has a gewaltige meaning. If you know what, at the top, you'll see what it means.
Right, you guys got it? 184-805?
Yeah.
You figured it out, guys?
How much is it?
Guys, basic math, 184-805. 2 8s.
No, 1 plus 8 plus 4 is 13, plus 8 is 21, and 5 is 26. What's 26? Okay, what is Aleph Ches Dalet?
Echad.
For 7 years, I didn't know about that. So one day I put on Talis and Twiddle, happened to be a Sephardic boy. You know, he pointed out to me that I had the gewaltige meaning on the number.
Could we see your arm, Mr. Beller? You have to raise your hand. You have to raise your arm. A little more.
All right, down, a little more. You got it? Do you
I
see
think-
it?
over here. It's on the right side, guys. You see? Yeah, I see.
Over here. Wait, turn it this. You got it?
A little higher, Mrs. Greenstein. A little up there. Yeah,
1 second.
805.
We can't see.
We need to talk so we can see that picture.
Yeah, 1
It's
second.
184805.
We still can't see it.
Yeah,
We can't see it.
you see? Raise your hand there, right there. You see, guys? No, too high. A little lower. That's too high. A little lower, Mr. Bell, a little lower. There, guys, you see, look, next is. You see?
Yeah.
Okay, they see now.
This was with the needle. They did it with the needle like this.
Mr. Beeler,
Yeah.
when I've heard you say once that having that number became very different after the Satmar Rebbe told
Yes.
people. You want to.
I'll tell you something that you don't know. When I came to the United States, I was one of the beginners, the first that I came. We were called the Greenhorns. I don't know if you know it. We were put down. I came in 1946. We were put down by the American Jews here. When the Satmar Rebbe came to the United States, and they came to him with Kvitlach. So the Rebbe said, "Why do you come to me? Go to anyone who has a number in his hand. Go to him with Kvitlach." The whole thing changed. Suddenly we became holy people. We prompted people to come to us with Kvitlach. I'm not telling you a story. That's the truth. Anybody sees my number, please give me a bracha. Give me a bracha. Okay, the Satmar Rebbe said.
So we could have your bracha? You'll give us your bracha?
I'm more clueless. You the rabbi in the school there.
Yeah.
I work in the office.
I'm sure the game you should have a sachat malen als alle in union zusammen teuren Dillen und gemacht ist use kein sagen für Mitzes mit so teuer für die Kinder dort ist in zusammen teuren Dillen und gemacht in so leibliche malen mich aus librem Teufel.
Amen.
Where are you located? Where are you?
In Yerushalayim, close to the in Beit HaKerem, close to the train station, close to the bus station.
I've been at Sua come visit you.
Please do. We would love to have you.
If you have any question, please. There's a lot of questions to be asked. I gave you enough food to do. So if you have any question, please bring it up.
What kept you going day to day? You're in a camp for so many years. How did you get up every morning? Like, what kept you going day to day?
Let me tell you this. We had families, we had parents, sisters, and brothers, but we are so dehumanized that our mind was away from everything. Only how to have this piece of bread. The hunger was so great, we didn't think of anything else but how this. And sometimes, at this time, I wonder how this was possible. That we forgot about that. I didn't say forget, but we were away from everything. We just had to mind this piece of bread. The hunger was so great, it's impossible. And the pachet, people were beaten constantly. They were killed. People were beaten to death. people were hung. It was appearance constantly.
I could ask a question, Mr. Beeler. First of all, thank you very much for everything you said. It's tremendous chizuk for all of us. Many survivors didn't want to tell their story. It was too frightening. Sometimes not at all, sometimes only much later. What were your feelings about that? Were you, and perhaps it was different because you went through it as a much younger man.
I tell you, I also didn't speak for this for a lot of years. But as I told you, what happened to me, what I found out that was one time a girl came, was I think by Yankov, and she, I'll put some that stay you straight. Where I lived, there was a teacher, which was a teacher in Rabbi Mandel's Beis Yaakov. And this teacher was there, and she told me, she came up to me, she says, Mr. Bella, we're going to have talk, and we're going to have a video about the Holocaust. Can you come, please, and talk about it? So I said, I had enough. I don't want, because we were downgraded. They took us mamish in the beginning. I said, I don't want to talk. I don't want to. So she begged me, says, come, please, because I'll tell you, sir, what happened. A girl came home and she told her father, they're going to talk about it. So the father said, don't go back tomorrow to school because you don't have to know about the Holocaust. The father told it to a young girl. When I found this out, I was very shook up. And I said, from now on, I'm going to talk as much as I can. Ever since I started talking a lot about it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, how hard was it to try and get back to normal life after the war? Like when you were in America, how difficult was it to try and like get back to a regular life?
Good question. When I was liberated, you know, I was sick. I was critical that time. I had typhus. I was in hospital for 2 months.
Typhus.
But we came out from I was still well for 2 days. We had the parents, we had family, with not interested. You didn't think about anything else. You just thought, you went to the wagons, pick up the bread, and whatever they had, all the foods there, a lot of foods there. Here, you're away for so many years, you don't know what's happening, nothing is mine. You look for this piece of bread with or whatever there is there. We saw dehumanized. We saw hungry for food, that everything was forgotten. It's unimaginable. Yes?
Thank you for sharing. Sorry, it's truly amazing to hear. I guess a bit of a different question.
Come here, I can hear what you're saying.
Come closer.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for speaking to us. I guess a bit of a different question, but just interested to hear from your perspective, how do you feel about the state of the Jewish world today and the past 10, 20 years or so? Just interested to hear from your perspective.
I don't understand the question. What do you mean, how I feel about what? The Jewish?
The state of the Jewish world, just in general.
This is two contradictory, two things that you can't compare one to each other. There was hunger, starvation, beating, and loss of families and everything. Here, Baruch Hashem, you have everything. You can't close these. It's no comparison one to each other.
He just means, what's your opinion about he just means, as someone with a unique perspective, what do you think about the Jewish world today? He knows it's different, but what does Mr. Beeler think about the Jewish world today? We're in a good place. We're in a bad place. What can we do better as a people? What are we doing good as a people?
I think that that people are doing good today. They're going, they do, there's a lot of seals nefesh, and there is a lot money given for tzedukos and things, and a lot of yeshivas, and it's been great, yeah. In Europe was also, but it was not in this in such a form, you know, because it was poverty. We are poor people that time. Here, Baruch Hashem is expanded, but I think the Jewish people, the rabbis, and the yeshivas doing a great job with the future generations. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Billy, thank you so much. It was really such a schus. I knew it would be a schus, and the Baruch Hashem should give you at 120 even more, and a lot of nachas from your children, grandchildren, einiklach, and you should be zochet to.
You see, you this is a yeshiva that you have there.
Yeshiva, yeah, it's a yeshiva.
American boys.
American boys, Australian, Canada, Australia, Canada, South America, South African, English speakers, all English speakers.
I want to give a message for the boys.
Please.
I want you boys, when you go home, you should tell your parents that you met a survivor. And the survivor was from day one, from September 1, 1939, to the end of the war, which was the end of April 1945, which I went through from Aleph Bestu, everything I went through. The death march, the death transport, the beating, the Zwangsarbeitsleiber, losing my parents, losing my everything, from Aleph Bestu. Can you imagine? I was a young boy. I was at this time taken away to camp about 14 years. You go away from a family. I left, my father was away in camp. I was left with a brother and a sister in my mother's shul. You go away, wasn't able to say goodbye. I couldn't, because I was in hiding. They wanted to send me away to Auschwitz. I ran away. In my miracle, I survived. They didn't go to, I went to the, and nothing I had in mind. I had nothing in mind but how to survive, how to get, we were so dehumanized, so down. We came to the United States after the war, after going through hell. We were called the Greenhorns camp. It's unbelievable. It took about 2 years when the Satmar Rebbe Zechoyne Levoche came, and they went in with Quittler. So he says, don't go to me, go to somebody you find with the number, go let them give you a... Then the whole thing changed. Then the people start already going to the survivors for brochas and everything. But it just shows you how people in the United States at this time had almost, I wouldn't say everybody, almost forgotten us, what we went through there. When you see but that's what it was. The Saturday brought an awakening to the Jewish people to reconsider their thought and think different about the survivors.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Bilin. I hope you'll come. I hope you'll be alive in the yeshiva sometime soon. Come visit us here in Yerushalayim, or we'll do a Zoom with you in the future again. Bez Hashem, you should.
What is your name, yeshiva?
Chappelle's Darchei Noam. As it's called Chappelle's, and it's Darchei Noam. It's Darchei Noam.
Okay.
Thank you so
much. Malen, die Jungs van Teuren doen met Mechel, nachts van de Rabbonische Leute, en nachts van de Mishpuches, nachts van de Rabbayim.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nachas to you.
Thank you.